Are we live? Hello. 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 Hey there. This is your Sensei Al Bob coming to you on your Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob YouTube channel. And I want to welcome you. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. This is the new normal. And the new normal is what? The almost blinding incandescent behind me and the darkness in front of me. But all we have to do is turn around, right? We're in the new normal. This is the year zero. That's all we have to do is turn around. And let's turn around. Right? So, first we go sideways. Oh, we're tipping over. Oh. And then we take our whole little world and we turn it around. And here we are. Remember to wear your mask and wash your hands. Wash your hands. Wash your hands. This is my mask. I couldn't buy any, so I found one in my dresser drawer. A nice little. The president told me that you could wear a scarf or a bandana. That's what it is. With my little crystal. So my little crystal is magically, just like our president said, it would magically cure ourselves. And so I have my magic, mega crystal. Make America great again. But it's really, and you can hear the heart-lung machine in the back, right? That's the planetary heart-lung machine that you hear, keeping us all alive. Someone jumped in and jumped out, but now there's two of you. God is my strength. Vision is God's gift. And not meaning like wearing two glasses, but seeing what's right in front of us. The idea for today combines two very powerful thoughts, both major importance. It is also sets forth a cause and effect relationship that explains why you cannot fail in your efforts to achieve the goal of the Course. And the Course is the Course in Miracles. And the miracle we're talking about is love's co-creation. Who loves you, baby? Yes, right. Your Al loves it. This is my new mask, my mega approved crystal magic mask. And it's true. Love is a magical potion. Let's see. You will see, because it is the will of love's co-creation, meaning it also has forth a cause and effect relationship. Love does. A goal, a course of relationship that explains why you cannot fail in your efforts to achieve the goal of the Course, and that is to commune with all our relations, to support all of our relations, to be empathetic and realization of the empathy of love's unconditional understanding. I just got out of my detox bath. I love baths, but all I can do is a shower. And that's better than what I normally do, which is stand out in the rain. Love is indeed your strength, and what love gives is truly given. This means that you can receive love at any time, at anywhere, wherever you are, and in whatever circumstances you find yourself. Your passage through time and space is not at random. You cannot but be in the right place at the right time. Such is the strength of love. Such are love's gifts. And what that really means is that your intent has to be strong. Your intent with every day and every way to bring the peace of the world and all our relations. That's our intent. And that's what brings love, right? Uh, let's see. I've got the virus like Billy. So, which virus do you have? Do you have love's virus or the illusion of the virus, right? That's really always fun. The illusion of the virus, right? We will have 3 to 5 minute practice period today, right? So every day in every way should practice, right? Vision must be possible. Love gives truly insight. Love's gifts to me must be mine because love gave them to me, right? So you need to kind of say that along with a prayer. Bless me indeed, enlarge my territory. Love, put your hand on my shoulder to keep me from evil so I will do no harm. Right? So right now, we're in a shuffling of the cards, right? And right now there is that great light and the darkness, right? And the darkness is more gray than anything. Hold on a second. Oh, get something over here. Maybe I'll just, again, move reality. See, like I move this chair, right? So pick up the chair and I move reality over here. Now reality is totally different. Oh. Oh. Oy, oy, oy. Hey. Okay. So I want to play a little swatch of things. And, I've been watching my stream, and here we go.
This is Dr. Cameron Kyle Seidel, ER and critical care doctor from New York City. 9 days ago, I opened an intensive care unit to care for the sickest COVID-positive patients in this city. In these patients, I have witnessed medical phenomenon that just don't make sense in the context of treating a disease that is supposed to be a viral pneumonia. 9 days ago, I presumed I was opening an intensive care unit to treat patients with a virus causing a pneumonia that was ravaging lungs across the world, starting out as something mild, a cough, a sore throat, and progressively increasing in severity until ultimately ending in something called acute respiratory distress syndrome, or ARDS. This is the paradigm that every hospital in the country is working under. This is the disease, ARDS, that every hospital is preparing to treat. And this is the disease, ARDS, for which in the next 2 to 6 weeks, 100,000 Americans might be put on a ventilator. And yet, everything I've seen in the last 9 days, all the things that just don't make sense, the patients I'm seeing in front of me, the lungs I'm trying to improve, have led me to believe that COVID-19 is not this disease, and that we are operating under a medical paradigm that is untrue. In short, I believe we are treating the wrong disease, and I fear that this misguided treatment will lead to a tremendous amount of harm to a great number of people in a very short time. As New York City appears to be about 10 days ahead of the country, I feel compelled to get this information out. COVID-19 lung disease, as far as I can see, is not a pneumonia and should not be treated as one. Rather, it appears as some kind of viral-induced disease, most resembling high-altitude sickness. It is as if tens of thousands of my fellow New Yorkers are on a plane at 30,000 feet and the cabin pressure is slowly being let out. These patients are slowly being starved of oxygen. I have seen patients dependent on oxygen take off their oxygen and quickly progress through a state of anxiety and emotional distress and eventually get blue in the face. And while they look like patients absolutely on the brink of death, they do not look like patients dying of pneumonia. I have never been a mountain climber, and I do not know the conditions at base camp below the highest peaks in the world. But I suspect that the patients I'm seeing in front of me look most like as if a person was dropped off on the top of Mount Everest without time to acclimate. I don't know the final answer of this disease, but I'm quite sure that a ventilator is not it. That is not to say that we don't need ventilators. We absolutely need them. They are the only way at this time that we're able to give a little more oxygen to patients who need it. But when we treat people with ARDS, we typically use ventilators to treat what's called respiratory failure. That is, we use the ventilator to do the work that the patient's muscles can no longer do because they're too tired to do it. These patients' muscles work fine. I fear that if we're using a false paradigm to treat a new disease, that the method that we program the ventilator, one based on a notion of respiratory failure as opposed to oxygen failure, that this method, and there are a great many number of methods we can use with the ventilator, but this method being widely adopted at this very moment in every hospital in the country, which aims to increase pressure on the lungs in order to open them up, is actually doing more harm than good. And that the pressure we are providing to lungs, we may be providing to lungs that cannot stand it, that cannot take it, and that the ARDS that we are seeing, that the whole world is seeing, may be nothing more than lung injury caused by the ventilator. Now, I don't know the final answer to this disease. I do sense that we will have to use ventilators. We will have to use a great many number of ventilators, and we need a great many number of ventilators, but I sense that we can use them in a much safer way. In a much safer method. That safer method challenges long-held dogmatic beliefs within the medical community and among lung specialists, which will not be easy to overcome. But I really believe that they must be overcome. There are hundreds of thousands of lungs in this country at risk, and the time to overcome them is now. I'm confident that if those of us that work bedside with these patients, those of us who are witnessing the things that we have never seen before, despite the many years we have worked and the thousands of patients and diseases seen, if we can effectively communicate this to all those that are so important but who are not bedside, the researchers, the administrators, those who procure our resources and make our protocols, the politicians, our own governments, if we are able to convince them that this is a disease that is different than anything we have ever seen, I'm confident that an answer can be found, that effective treatments can be discovered, and that a plan to disseminate that treatment can be rapidly deployed, and that tens of thousands and probably hundreds of thousands of lives and lungs will be protected. The time for this is now. We are staring into a future in which a great many of our fellow Americans are going to suffer. We are all involved in this future. So I urge you, for those of us, if you are out there, for those who work bedside, I urge you to speak up. We can change this. I thank you all for listening. Please spread the message and stay safe.
In light of this important message of this doctor, who I want to add has nothing to gain at all by giving you this, unlike the plethora of people on the news like Bill Gates who have a lot to gain by you taking his advice, this man has nothing to gain and everything to lose. But I'd like to make a few comments, and please take my comments with a grain of salt. Don't believe anything I say, do your own research. But I'd like to point out here that in my video on 60 gigahertz FIVEG, I roughly explained how the uptake of oxygen to hemoglobin can be potentially interfered with electromagnetically. Since releasing that video, I have had further confirmation by a molecular scientist specializing in oxygen. I'll show that later. But I showed how it's well known that 60 gigahertz FIVEG is absorbed by oxygen. I showed you footage of how the heads of telecom admit under oath there have been no industry-sponsored safety testing of these frequencies, that they are saying they will release in an expedited manner. No safety testing on humans, no safety testing on the environment. In the video, I also begged that we need further testing to be done before we continue to unleash these frequencies on the world. That video was subsequently removed by YouTube. Now, this doctor admits this. Whatever this is that he's seeing coming into his ICU is unlike anything he's ever seen before. He says he has witnessed medical phenomena that don't make sense in the context of treating a disease that's supposed to be a viral pneumonia. The thing that they're telling you all over the media that this is, without a doubt. He describes that the paradigm that they are told that they would be treating is ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome. End quote. Yet everything I've seen in the last 9 days, all of the things that just don't make sense, the patients I'm seeing in front of me, the lungs I'm trying to improve have led me to believe that this COV-19 is not this disease. He's saying it's not behaving as a viral pneumonia. He says, and that we are operating under a medical paradigm that is untrue. And he adds that he fears that this misguided treatment will lead to a tremendous amount of harm to a great number of people in a very short period of time. Are you listening? He's calling this
Whoops.
can be exacerbated by the use of ventilators itself. You heard him say it, not me, that as far as he can see it, it is not acting as a pneumonia and it should not be treated as one. Again, a head doctor in ICU in New York City is saying this, not me. I have no medical advice on this topic. I'm simply asking, can we confirm if 60 gigahertz frequency has actually been unleashed in New York City? Are there any whistleblowers out there who install small cell towers who have seen the frequencies listed on the side? Come to me and let me know where they've installed this stuff so we can start to gather this kind of information. Can we start to consider that just perhaps, just maybe, this thing is not what we are being told? Thanks for listening. God bless you. I love you. And I hope to talk to you again very soon.
That was Dana Ashley. Her
Naughty words. Okay, so let's practice. The main topic in this video is involving a very dark and very sick plan against you and me that is involving these and these. Yeah, okay, great. You got this. So the most important aspect of this video, the whole reason why I'm doing it, is because there is one amazingly simple and cheap and effective thing you can be doing to protect yourself from these. Fantastic. So today we won't be saying those words, but we're going to be talking about what the heck they're really doing with them without actually saying the word, which is going to be fun. I learned since filming this intro that far more people are familiar with the existence of the first image I showed you than the second of the HAARP facilities. So here, from the mouth of Bob McCoy, the director of Geophysical Institute, admits openly is the purpose of these facilities.
This facility was built by the Air Force about 20 years ago to study the ionosphere, to do active experiments in the ionosphere. The ionosphere is a layer that surrounds the Earth. It's important for a lot of things, like satellite communication. Any kind of radio signals that pass through the ionosphere are affected by the ionosphere. Each of these trailers you see around me have transmitters in them. The transmitters feed power from the main building over there up into these dipole antennas. Fundamentally, what this is about is taking the ionosphere, turning it into a laboratory. We can do experiments. We can create bubbles. We can heat small sections. We can create waves. We can excite plasma resonances and do a lot of experiments. We can transmit signals all around the world, and we can do experiments that no one else can do. It's a laboratory without walls.
Now, if you're the kind of person, let's just back up and say this. If you're the kind of person who doesn't already believe or understand the fact that there's some stuff being intentionally sprayed upon us, I understand. I felt that way myself, 2002, when I first heard about it. I get it. It's a disturbing thing to accept. But you might want to back up and just take a look at other videos on the topic, play a little catch up, because this video is not going to compute. Okay, the fact is, these things aren't condensation. Their existence has already been admitted. within mainstream publications and by scientific weather mod scientists. It's been declassified. So they're claiming it's to help us, of course, fight that devil carbon. Wait.
Here's what the media is saying.
Are any companies being compelled by the U.S. government to make ventilators? I would like to speak directly to one person known to watch this show, or at least clips of the show, President Trump. Mr. President, I know you, like millions of Americans, are eager to have the nation go back to some semblance of normal. One of the questions the American people need answered for that to happen responsibly, what's the plan? Is there a plan for widespread testing of every American so as to isolate the virus the way other countries have done? When will there be enough tests for that to happen? How will they be administered? Who will pay for the tests and the results? Who will notify us as to whether we've tested positive or not and what to do then? Is there a plan to make sure doctors and nurses and healthcare professionals finally are able to get the personal protective equipment or PPE that they need? Those healthcare workers are quite literally dying while they try to protect our society and save lives, and they're begging for PPE. They don't need to be told that their governors or their hospital directors are doing anything wrong by trying to get those supplies to protect their lives while they try to save our lives. They need to know that there's a plan to get them the supplies they need. Governors and mayors right now are literally bidding against each other and against the federal government to try to get these supplies. This is escalating the prices and causing confusion and unnecessary bidding competition. Is there a plan to stop that? What is it? What about ventilators? New York City Mayor de Blasio said today would be the day his city could run out. Governor Edwards said his city or state could run out on Thursday. Is there a plan to expedite the manufacture of ventilators? It's still not clear whether you have fully utilized the Defense Production Act. Have you? Are any companies being compelled by the U.S. government to make ventilators? And when will they be made? When can hospitals get them? What about the cotton masks that the CDC is now suggesting that we all wear when we leave our homes? Is someone manufacturing them? How can we get them? Is there a plan? Please, Mr. President, the American people, they need answers to these questions.
Yep, they do.
They're less interested in your popularity on Facebook. Thousands of Americans are in mourning. They're horrified when you make leering allusions to your history with models while discussing projection models of mass.
Chinese authorities have a slave to China. This is China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. The World Health Organization, WHO. Now, this may surprise you.
Doesn't that look like a
The
dollar sign there, guys?
Symbol is a
Look at that.
snake coiling around the world is not super trustworthy.
Dollar
Apparently,
sign.
the logo originates from the story of Asclepius, who was revered by the ancient Greeks as a god of healing, and whose cult involved the use of snakes. Great! The cult of snakes is tasked with global health. On an unrelated
That's a dollar bill.
the World
Dollar,
Health
dollar,
Organization is
dollar,
horribly
dollar,
corrupt.
dollar.
So corrupt that a recent audit found that the division tackling the coronavirus is underfunded. That's your U.S. taxpayer dollars not at work. The U.S. contributes about $500 million a year to the WHO, more than double any other country. But it seems that China is the one really pulling the strings. The Chinese Communist Party considers Taiwan a province of China, despite the fact that Taiwan is obviously its own country, which is why the WHO has refused to recognize the country of Taiwan because the People's Republic of China refuses to recognize the country of Taiwan and blocks it from entering the United Nations. The WHO is a UN agency. There have been about 300 infections and 3 deaths from the coronavirus in Taiwan. And remember, this outbreak began in China and spread because the Chinese Communist Party covered it up. which is why I call it the CCP virus. By the way,
And I'll close with Richie from Boston.
You're listening to the Corbett Report. CorbettReport.com.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Corbett Report podcast. I'm your host, as always, James Corbett of CorbettReport.com, coming to you from the sunny climes of Western Japan here in March of 2020 with episode 373 of the Corbett Report podcast, Medical Martial Law 2020. Now, if you follow the feeds at CorbettReport.com, you will know that last week I re-released a section of an old podcast, specifically episode 86 of the Corbett Report podcast on medical martial law, which was released in 2009 in the height of the swine flu pandemonium that was sweeping the globe at that time. And just last week, Corporate Report video editor Brock West revivified a section of that podcast in video format for release as a video to bring people up to speed on what I was talking about 11 years ago in regards to the laying of the infrastructure and legislative framework for the implementation of medical martial law in any declared public health emergency. And there are many different pieces, different cookie crumbs along that trail leading towards that medical martial law conclusion. And so I will exhort you, if you've not yet done so, to go back and not just watch that video section of the podcast, but listen to the entire podcast, which lays it out in a great degree of detail. And I will be taking that information for granted, that you are familiar with the steps that have already been put in place that I was outlining in episode 86. For example, the Model State Emergency Health Powers Act, which was drafted in the wake of the 2001 anthrax bioterror false flag event, which was subsequently adopted by over 40 states and allows for quarantines and mandated vaccinations in the event of any declared public health emergency. And it is that Model State Emergency Health Powers Act which gave rise to legislation in numerous different state legislatures that are now being implemented as I speak in various states declaring public health emergencies. So it is important to have that background and that legislative framework in place in your mind. So once again, I will exhort you to go back and refamiliarize yourself with the material in that previous podcast. But as you might guess from the title of today's podcast, I'm going to be updating the 11 years of information that has taken place between then and now to move us a little further along that road towards what we are seeing right now, which is the flicking of the switch and the turning on of the apparatus for medical martial law. It is happening, and it is important to understand how we got to where we are today in order to better understand what is likely to happen in the near future.
That's all nice and good. That's just, let's see, how long? That was about 15 minutes of a little rambling of stuff to juice up your brain cells. Let's see where you guys are at. Let's read the chat. Let's see. Buddy says, who loves you, baby? I just got my detailed bath like Billy Ray Cyrus. He's got the virus. I got the good virus, right? Let's see. Hello, Lana. Good to see you, my dear. The love bug for life. Yep. Also, tuberculosis that activates whenever you get sick. We all have it. Yep. I don't care for the flu or the disease right now. I'm loving this pandemic. Yep. And that's really, what am I doing? I'm like all yesterday. I worked in my little site, cleaning it up, getting ready for summer, working on my garden. And there was a tree that was just when in the morning, it was just a little bud, was just a little bud. Once the sun really started hitting it around 10 a.m., it started to open up. By about 1, the green was coming out of it. By 2, the little flower was coming out of the green, and I watched it all day long. It was, a great meditation. Yes, Khan. Why? Why do you love it? Because it's an opportunity to rise and shine. Exactly. Because it gives us the authority to heal ourselves, to in every day and every way take the piece of the earth and make it stronger through love's co-creation, out there being creative, right? For ourselves, for all our relations, that's who we do. And we are in service to love's co-creation for all our relations, all skinned, furred, scaled, warm-blooded, cold-blooded, carbon-based, silicate-based brethren, all our relations. When we love all of ourselves, we love love's co-creation. Ugh. So we're going to the Book of Runes here and go to support, right? Oh, what's my... And love is my strength. Love gives me vision to see with a gift of grace. The idea that love combines two very powerful thoughts, both the major importance. It is also set forth a cause and effect of relationships that explains why we cannot fail in our effort to achieve the goal of love's co-creation within and every day in every way, bringing the peace to the earth. And that's what Buddy's talking about when he says, because it's an opportunity to rise and shine, right? To be helpful and enjoy the quiet and fresh air. Yep, exactly. I've been, my neighbor who generously lets me stay in his basement, because it's still cold out there. I mean, it was like yesterday early in the morning at 6, I walked out on the porch. It was 32, right? So it won't be until the end of this month, first week of May, that it'll get warm enough to, it'll be 50 at night rather than 32. Let's see. So you are selfish. Be careful with selfish, yeah. You can't be selfish with love, Lana. Love is indeed your strength, and that love gives in truly giving. This means that you can receive it anytime and anywhere, wherever you are, and in whatever circumstance you find yourself. Your passage through time and space is not at random. All of this is happening so we can step up, and rise and shine, Remember, can't morning, good morning, get rise and shine. That's what we used to sing in Camp Orenda. Explain it, Ben. Okay, come on, buddy. Step it up. I am the opposite of selfish. Explain. What do I have to prove anything? Right? Buddy, I'm Buddy. Bubby, I'm Bubby. Why are you getting defensive? Saying that you're not selfish. Just stating a simple fact, right? And I'll go back to stating the simple fact. Love is indeed your strength, and what love gives is truly given. This means that you can receive it anytime, anywhere, wherever you are, and it's whatever circumstances you find yourself, right? We will have 2, 3, 5 minutes to practice this period. Such is the strength of love, such is love's gift. And that's what we have to do in every day in every way. Practice. That's what prayer is about. That's why I pray all the time. Asking. There's Robert Berman. Hey there, retards. Lena, question mark. Let's see. Turn it up, Bob. It's boring. Come on, buddy, step it up. You know, if it's boring, don't be boring, buddy. I mean, you know, since self-change is never coerced, right? It's never coerced, you know. Lana, all we can do is work on ourselves, Lana, right? When other people frustrate or don't answer our question, it's our place to go find out the information ourselves, not have somebody give it to us, right? Since self-change is never coerced, we are always free to resist, remain mindful that the new life is always greater than the old. And that's why this show is about, the new normal can't be the same old same. We can't just have more of the oppressor, because all you have to do is say no, Say no to hate and fear, and yes to love's co-creation. Let's see. We all can see the info. Please stop these. Are you panicking, dude? Well, you know what? But I have nothing to panic. I'm out in the middle of God's country, as my dad would say, and there's nobody here to infect me. So, I'm all good. But for the general public, they kind of have to know that something's afoot. So I spent, I read a prayer, and then I showed you my new, presidentially, look at that diamond. That's a mega diamond, And, everything is as it should be. As when I was a young novitiate, my teachers, I would all be, but why is it blah, blah, blah? Why can't it be? Why, blah, 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 And, pretty much, let's see. That was annoying. What was annoying? We have an immune system or not? Yep, we do. O-type blood is better. Well, zero-type is also where you have underneath from all relatives from before. Yep, nope. Opposite that. What's annoying me? One thing I always been grateful for is that we equal human cannot control temperature. Imagine what we would do if we would control that. Let's see. And also, can handle. Yes, women are much better at handling everything. They used to rule the world. When I ruled the world. And they, for some reason, which, I've been studying for years in the ancient books, why did women give up control? Sparta was the last, city-state that was really run by women. And they were the kick-ass city-state. They kicked everybody's butt, right? And the women sent the guys out to war. And their city was kind of up on a hill. And they built this big wall around it that was impenetrable. And there was one way in, and it was up a ramp. It was about half a mile long, up a ramp. And all the guys had to do was stand up there on the ramparts and shoot arrows down at and they only had they had two gates, one at the very top and one in the middle. So the people would kind of in and get stuck in the middle, and they would just and shoot them all. So they had farms and water and you couldn't hold them up. And so they were impenetrable. And the women would, as the men would go off to fight a war, they would throw flowers and kisses. And if they didn't win, the women showed their backs to them. And that first gate in the middle would be closed, and the guys would go up there, and they'd have to camp out on an inclined plane until the women would let them in, right? Nobody. There's only one ruler of the universe, and that's love's co-creation, right? And that's because it doesn't rule. It gives us, its children, a free will to choose whatever the heck we want to do, and that's what we're doing right now. And this little experience is just that, an experience, right? And we can learn from this. This is a great gift, this situation we find ourselves in, because we're either going to, right now, we're no longer in the Piscean age. That was 2012. The Mayan calendar is going to end of time. No, it's the end of the Piscean age. That's all. 25,000 years of getting what you want, or you think you want, through violence and power. And the Aquarian age is getting what you need by understanding, by truth, right? By information, by wisdom, right? So that's kind of where we are at. Right? So let's go back to the runes. Back to the runes. Back to support, right? And that's where I'm reading from, right? And I'm also reading from the Course in Miracles, right? Whether you find yourself on the path, be grateful, even for the things you are unable to change, for they will be your teacher. Yeah, that's kind of just what I just said. In the ancient runic tradition, Uraz stood for the wild ox, a beast difficult to domesticate, yet prized for its great strength. In the context of meaningful relationships, this rune represents the generosity of spirit and the readiness to stand by one another that defines such a relationship. And so, that's what the context of this pandemic is to break that, and to put the yoke more than it has ever been on the folk, right? And we don't need to go there. We can be generous, let's see. Let's see. God's gift to us must be ours, because God loves co-creation, gave them to us, right? So that's a free will. We have a free will to do whatever. We don't have to do the worst thing that we're doing. I mean, right now, everyone's being played against each other. Certain people are making fortunes while our economy is being destroyed, which never really existed. They want to push the United States. Oh, you can't hold that dirty money. You'll get sick. We need to put this tattoo on you. Don't take the number of the beast. Anyway, don't get don't sell yourself short. That's for sure. Any thought that is clearly related to the idea of love's co-creation is suitable. You may, in fact, be astonished at the moment of the Course in Miracles. This course, we're right here, and we're studying support. At one time or another, even the strongest among us needs support and encouragement. It is important to discover by paying close attention, listening with an open mind, an open heart, an active listening, where you're not like thinking, oh, what am I going to say next? So it's all about me. It's all about me. I'm going to say something now. Hey, it's all about me. No, active listening is like, what did they just say? What did that mean? What's going on? Right? How someone you love wishes to be supported, and then to best of your ability provide that support in any timely and appropriate manner. Too often we assume the needs of another are the same as our own. Acting on such assumption can cause no end of troubles. learn to ask and tell each other what you really need. After all, when what you long for is warmth and affection, it is disappointment to receive a new set of luggage. You know, what do I really need? Do I need a new set of luggage? No. I got more bags. I got bags upon bags upon bags. I don't need more bags. I don't need no more luggage. Let's see. Let's see. Boop, 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 boop. What's Lana saying? My sister's husband got Cronus. His lungs are filled with water. New York. He is O-type, universal giver, and healthy. Age 35. It's all about me. It's what you do mostly. Why are you reading like a pastor? Well, I find, the rune book helpful to me. And I'm hopefully those passages I'm reading are helpful to you, And that's kind of where it's at. And, what do I say when I start off here? Don't believe a word I say. I'm just your griot, your storyteller, Let's see. Okay. You don't want me to read from the book? Let's tell you a story. Okay. Let's see. What's a good story? Well, in 1970, when in actuality, when Richard Nixon got elected in, I guess, 68, right? And he wasn't elected. He was, like every other president, placed in power, right? And Dick, they kept, thwarting his abilities to rise up the political ladder just to drive him nuts, right? So he would be easier to be manipulated, right? And he had been, in that high table, right? He was congressman when Jack Kennedy was, Jack Kennedy and Richard Nixon kind of came along in the same manner, meaning they both went to college, but Jack went to Harvard, and Jack, Nixon, Dick. Why would anyone named Richard call themselves Dick? I never understood. Dick Army, Dick Cheney. They're all Dicks. So Dick went to Podunk and wherever he was, and his mother was a saint but poorer than dirt, where Jack was born, he was richer than rich, he was born a dilettante, and his father was a gangster, total gangster boy, totally Irish gangster, from Boston, right? And Meyer Lansky and were his buddy, booze, gambling, prostitution. That's the Kennedys, foundation of their fortune, right? Then he went into politics. He owned politics in Boston, right? And so when FDR, wanted to get elected in the 33, it's interesting that FDR and Adolf Hitler became heads of their governments the same year, same time. And in the first 6 years, Adolf did a better job, right? And that's because Adolf was serving the people to start off with, and then FDR was from the very beginning. He was serving the elite. Before FDR died, people would say, "Oh, you saved America." He said, "Oh no, I saved capitalism." Right, and so all through America's history. And it's very interesting. 4th of July is when America started, right? And what is the 4th of July? It's the day the dog star rises right behind the sun, right in line with the United States, right? And so that's serious, right? And so the dog star, the reptiles, the grays, they are benefactors of the American Illuminati kind of way. And, why was George Washington our first president? Because he was the richest man in the freaking world, right? Or at least in the United States, right? Let's see. My stories. Talk with us. Okay. I'll talk to you. So what do you want to talk about? I think that this will mutate. It will come in waves. Meaning, go to the guy, what's his name? High, Cliff High. This guy, he's a computer programmer who worked for everybody making models. So he made a model back in the 60s and 70s for biological warfare. And this thing that we are, up against is straight up a biological weapon. Cliff describes it clearly. And his latest or his last, he has a series going, Smoking Bat Stuff, bat shite, right? And so, go watch that. It's a straight up, right? And it's not acting like any virus. And viruses are dead. What they are, an RNA strand. They get into you and rewrite it. Basically, viruses are good for you because they are like the garbage pail of your body. Viruses get in there and respond to toxins. And what this is a toxin response, right? And it seems to be a toxin response to 60 gigahertz radiological, microwave cell, 60 gigahertz. And 60 gigahertz seems to absorb oxygen. And back in the day, when Motorola was around, I did some demographic studies for them back in the 70s, right? And then they were looking at how radiological influences the immune system, right? And we were just doing large pictures of that. And, that's what's going on right now. Now, don't believe a word I say. I don't know, have you seen how it spread? Yep. Started in China, then US, and YouTube, the rest. Well, and what's really interesting, so the intelligence folks knew about it the day it happened, and it gave a closed door thing to the intelligence committees of Congress and the Senate, and every member of that group went to their moneyed constituency and told them, hey, this is going to happen. And all those people sold their stock when it was at almost 30,000, right? And a good deal of them played it. When you put a put on the stock, you can make money at the precipitous drop. And so Madam Blavatsky, and the guy who's head of the Senate, he belongs to this club that costs $600,000 to belong in. He doesn't pay, and he just once a month gives a luncheon thing. And back in December, he told all these rich people who paid $60,000 just to hear him speak for lunch. And he gets up to $6 million every time he runs for Senate from this crew through a what do you call those things that you don't have to even say where the money came from, because money's free speech, and the Supreme Court told us so. Let's see. So, and the China thing, it came out of Wuhan, and Wuhan is where China has its biological warfare, just like Fort Detrick and Plum Island and the National Laboratory out there in Brookhaven. They all do that, right? And there are other places who are private. See, when DARPA employs a private company, back in the day, when in 1968, I was at Duke University and stumbled into the SEAL Corporation from California that were working to develop super soldiers, right, at Cornell, right, through a contract coming from Brookings, right, and the Council on Foreign Relations. And I just was like staying out of sight, hiding in plain sight in colleges. And I met this really beautiful a young woman who was studying as we were both in a part of the library at Duke where nobody was. It was like where the special books were, and you had to be a scholar. And we were both. I mean, all the rest of the folk in there were like me now. White beard, white hair. They all had carrels, meaning a little office, a little nook in this library. And we were at the main tables, and they're big, long tables. It's not to have, 20 people sit around the table. No, it's so you can spread all these books around. And she and I were the only two people who had books spread around these big tables and were like rating and taking notes. And anyway, the first day I saw her and I was going, she's kind of cute. And next day I was going to go for a cup of coffee down at the coffee shop on campus. And you can leave your books there, right? I mean, the librarian didn't come around and pick them up. Maybe after the second day, if they were still there and you weren't there, they'd come and pick them up. But they would leave them there, right? And you had to close and you had little pieces of paper that you would but you had to close the book. You can't keep the book open and break its back. So if you followed their protocols, it was all good. And you didn't have to have a special note. You just had to follow the protocols, right? And so she was, I was, 1968, I was like 18, right? I had just graduated high school and I had gone to college for one semester. I went to Hofstra and, I was already working in theaters and I was studying theater arts and, I could teach the course and all my teachers were like, why are you doing this? I wish I had your job. Anyway, so I was down in Duke. Just, I didn't want to break the law, so I just kept moving around so my draft board could never figure out where I was. So I didn't burn my draft card. I didn't, not respond. They would send it to wherever they thought I was, and it would come back, he's not here. So I just stayed out of, and I spent two years or less going to different colleges, right, and doing different things, just staying out of door. Anyway, I bumped into her. She was really interesting, and I started to look at what she was looking at, and it was psychology infused with the paranormal. And that was like right up, she had books from Madame Blavatsky, and a whole bunch of others. And I said, oh, I'm interested. We started talking about Blavatsky's major tomb and a few other esoteric and occult tombs. And then I told her what I did and how I was working in New York with the Theosophical Society building, sensory deprivation tanks. And she was, whoa, my boss would love it. I said, your boss? Oh, yeah, I'm getting my PhD in this. And she was like 23, right? And so, oh, really? So she introduced me. Anyway, so that guy was representing, he was one of the founders of that corporation, the SEAL Corporation. I became the SEAL guys in the Navy. And, he was out of Stanford. And so there's this real clique of institutions, right? Let's see. Good things, but don't take ibuprofen. Why not? What's bad about ibuprofen? Ibuprofen is not good. How come? Why is ibuprofen not good? Do you know that doctors don't know why pharmaceutical really work? Yeah, of course. They don't work. It's a scam, Now, pharmaceuticals could work if they were based on science and not business, right? So that's the problem. And what's really interesting, they passed, we have the best legislator money can buy. They passed laws saying that if you're, getting inoculated, the company who made that inoculation cannot be sued. Yep, we just don't know why. Anyway, so here we are, three of us. Who else is here? Lannis is in the talkative mood. And so basically I started to, at 18, I mean, I've been, had mentors tell me about the NWO and the community of the high table and the powers that shouldn't be, and the sock puppets and the usual suspects and all the above. And you know, that's what we're seeing right now. What Buddy was talking about, that this is a great opportunity. It is, to manifest our true self, our love, and our true self. So there it is, 1 hour. So when it gets ones across the board, I'm gonna skip out of here because it's still somewhat of a blue sky. It's supposed to rain later, so I have things to do before it starts to rain. So I'm gonna go off and do it. So so this is my new series. First we had 40 days and 40 nights. And then we had, window, I was counting down the window of opportunity. And right now, that window of opportunity is still open. And we have, what is it? We have about 380 days of the window of opportunity. And that's why 2020 is year zero. Because if you really look at history, as my scholarly path took me, I was like Dorothy, follow the yellow brick road. And what is that yellow brick road? But gold bars from the Federal Reserve. The guy who wrote The Wizard of Oz was an economist, and he was going on and on about the Federal Reserve and the guys behind the curtain, and nobody listened to him at all. And that was like before he wrote the book. The Wizard of Oz was basically giving the heads up of what was coming in the Great Depression, right? And he wasn't just talking about 1929. He was talking about, depression after depression after depression, because it already had happened, after the Civil War in the 70s, in the 90s, in the 1911, it just keeps having, like every 10, 20 years, a Great Depression. And that's what and they're all manufactured. So that's what we was having this great economy, not so great really. And before the bubble burst, they slipped this one in, right? For a good excuse. See, the dog ate my homework, Peace, Len. I love you, darling. You stay well. Have a beautiful day. And, keep those brain cells working. Keep that heart open. Think with your heart. Think with that love. Love's co-creation is what will get us through this. And we will get through this. It's all things are as they should be. That we're right on time, right? And so this is, where we're at. So anyway, I'm going to say goodbye to all. AI, thanks for hanging in there, buddy. And remember, get a hold of me at thedudeawake42@gmail. Go read my writings at xratted.blogspot. Throw some money in my PayPal account, which would be nice. And what else? That's about it. Love you. Stay well. Be good. Catch you later. Huh? Oh, where's that button? There it is. Yes, I am.